Today we are at the home of my uncle, John Benjamin, who is a professional artist. And we're doing this video here so we can spread it worldwide to give him some recognition, which I think he deserves. We're going to turn it over to John Benjamin so he can give us a little background on where he started in the art business, and as far as his educational background and his travels and what has happened to him in the art field.
Thank you, gentle. It's all a very long story. I have started painting almost from the cradle, because I don't remember when I was not painting at all. I've been always scratching the surface of the yard, on walls, on paper, and many other surfaces. I have been using a lot of my imagination. I not only painted things that I saw in those days, but I painted things that I didn't see except by my own imagination. In the early years, I had a lot of fantasies and other creative ideas. Those were the days when art was not really known in the creative sense. Schools did not encourage the subject. Children were flogged for drawing. Everyone thought it was a waste of time. But still I continued to paint, ignoring the feeling of the time. I remember painting and passing through periods. I once painted for a considerable amount of years the Shango dance several times, the calendar, which is a traditional dance from Africa, West Africa, which has disappeared now for the past 14 years. Native customs, culturally speaking. And my first public exhibition was in 1948, when I exhibited at the St.ANDREWS agricultural and industrial exhibition, which was held at the old church in those days. I managed to win both a first prize and a second prize. Then I continued to paint more and more, larger and larger scenes, until I eventually got a bursary, Commonwealth bursary, to study art education in England. And there I went off in 1962 to Sussex. I studied art education at Brighton College of Art. I met quite a number of other teachers. All these teachers were students, but they had already been painting to themselves. And so we were taken at a different level, because I had been a teacher from the outstart. I've been teaching general subjects before, and I was well familiar with children and all these sorts of things. And so to get into a teacher's college, a teacher's department in a college, was an advantage to me. So I was the very first to get away in the field of art education. And let us say, well, I was named the pioneer of art education in Grenada, or for Grenada. When I returned, I resumed teaching at the school where I had been teaching for several years, Bel Air Government School. And I sort of was a specialist teacher. And I went in there for some years. And but before that, before moving to UK, I was given an opportunity by the University College of the West Indies in those days. That was in 1959. I had been chosen to represent Grenada for the first Caribbean art exhibition held at the University College of the West Indies in those days at Monde. And there I met other Caribbean artists too, representing their countries. And we were under Professor Mackay. He was the coast warden. He was a very brilliant man, a very gay man, and he knew quite a lot about art and technique of art, but he was very, I should say, not so formal with his teaching and his ideas. We all were enjoying the course in a manner that he allowed us to express what we felt we wanted to do. And afterwards we would have review and critical analysis of whatever came out of it. Well, that was in 1959, and I had a lot of fights before to get recognition, because those were the dark days where nobody really wanted to recognize you. But my trip to Jamaica and eventual trip to England was strangely enough brought about more by outsiders than Grenadians themselves. I had a lot of English professionals in different fields who rallied around me. I remember the British Council representative, John Danford at Barbados. He was very influential in helping me to get a bursary to England. I remember Miss Blundell, Margaret Blundell. She was resident tutor here. She too was behind me. I remember Professor Mackay. He was a man from Scotland. He was born in Peru, but he was a man from Scotland, Scottish parentage rather. He wrote the Ministry of Education here on my behalf. And then I remember Mr. Aubrey Douglas Smith. He was an Englishman here too, one-time resident tutor. He was very influential in getting me to Jamaica. I had very great, I should say, difficulties in getting the local authorities to recognize me. But I didn't worry with that. I kept on painting all the same. So, well, I should go back to the painting itself. I passed through a period when I had been painting the Adam and Eve, I would say, in different situations. I had painted Adam and Eve several times. Adam and Eve on banana tree, Adam and Eve on the nutmeg tree, Adam and Eve on the pawpaw tree, Adam and Eve on the coconut tree. And all these were innovations which nobody had seen this type of approaches before. And as time went on, I began to become probably more and more creative. And I remember winning the Arts Festival prize 4 times in succession. And that is the Grenada Arts Festival, you see. After a time, I decided not to go into any competition and to allow others to compete, because that was something very, I should say, I wasn't very happy to know that I was winning all these prizes one after the other. So I decided to drop out of the out of the competition. And after passing through this Adam and Eve periods, I passed through a period of landscape painting. I have been painting quite a bit of landscape all around the countryside, and that was a period when I was probably most down to earth. But as time went on, I became even bolder and more original. And then I discovered that what we see is not always the truth. Visual, the things that are visible, something really happens to them. And this happens because of the motion of the earth. As everybody knows, I mean, the earth spins around. I shouldn't say I discovered that idea, but suddenly I used that idea in my art by circling all my figures and objects and whatever it is and put them in motion that way, so that after a time people began to see a lot of circles and different planes appearing in my picture, unlike what they used to see before. And I was, first of all, the people became angry about that change. And I was trying to tell them how original I was in making this change, and it was quite scientifically true that although we see ourselves and things as we see them, we are all in motion because the earth goes around in a rapid motion, and although the camera cannot see what is happening, but I could express it, and we can express it through innovation and ideas. So this type of art was, and that I'm still with that, and that's my own invention, and it is based on a scientific fact, you see. I had many opportunities to get other exposure, and I was invited by the Royal Commonwealth Society of Canada to have an exhibition in Canada. It's about 1979, and I went there with these paintings, and especially the circular ones, I would call them. They managed to get some attention up there, and I sold many paintings in that new style. And the Governor General of Canada received me, and he too he is in possession of one of these type of paintings, and if you go to Government House you will see it hanging there at the entrance. In those days, Jennifer Hostain Craig was commissioner for Grenada, and she was a lot influential too in getting me to Canada, and my wife and we were invited there and were well received. I should mention too, I wasn't painting in isolation after some time. My wife, who is a native of Holland, she too had been actively painting, and from about 1964 when she arrived here, from that point it was joint exhibitions we were holding all over the place, and she had her own style and her own technique, and I had mine. As a matter of fact, before we met, or when we met, we didn't know that we had been painting at all. It's afterwards we discovered we were painters, you see, and we met in England, not in Holland, you see. And well, then eventually I was given an award from Cologne, the city of Cologne in West Germany. I was given the order of the Cross of the Horse Guard of the city of Cologne. It's a cultural thing which is based on German history. German history went from 15 something, and then again other things happened to me. I have had many patrons who had been patronizing me very well. I remember Lord Hales, the late Lord Hales, the Governor General of the West Indies, had been in touch with me and also collected a couple samples of my work, and quite numerous people. I remember the director of the Atomic Energy Forum, Charles Robbing and Mrs. Robbing. They came to see me, and they too bought a beautiful painting. And over the years, different people, different times. I have been also writing poems. At a certain point, I decided to write poetry because at school I had a flair for poetry, and I had been always reading good poems and studying literature on the whole. And one year in about 1979, there was a Caribbean competition in poetry organized by the BBC, and I took part in that competition. There were 850 entries, and I was one of the winners, or the 4 winners, and I wrote on some crabs that I saw and their behavior that day when I saw them, or that evening or late afternoon when I saw them. And to my surprise, I was one of the winners on this BBC competition. Well, my poetry and art are all tied together in a sense because I use my imagination and my emotions very often, and they all come together because what I cannot see, I bring out creatively in art, and what I feel strongly about and cannot bring out in art, I bring out in words. I'm very happy to describe or comment on this painting. It's from my creative imagination, so you'll understand that you won't see that in Grenada, in our sea. The statues are dancing enthusiastically, tremendous amount of rhythm and unity there. They are standing on rocks, as you see. The moon is powerfully bright, and the reason for having these circles involved with these very, I should say, elegant shapes, it's to show that the motion of the earth is as usual at work, so that we can see the sky and some of the rocks and the statues themselves all moving within a circular motion in conformity with the earth's motion itself. Now, the picture is a marriage, an inventive marriage between realistic forms and scientifically innovated laws of nature. So there is a combination of reality and scientific knowledge, because as I had said earlier in my remarks, everything that is existing is moving around in circles. There's no escape of that. So this kind of art is not really what the camera sees, not really what the eye sees, but it is mainly what is scientifically true and correct. So I remain halfway between reality and scientific laws in that picture. You can see the picture is not colorful in a sense. It's dominated by very somber colors, but nevertheless the statues look quite distinct, and they are fulfilling their purpose, motion and movements. This picture you see is a very extremely unusual kind of approach with Adam and Eve. I use a West Indian theme, a West Indian setting, or West Indian idea, or West Indian life, or if we say the part of the life is cricket in the West Indies is a very important thing for the West Indians. So I use that idea of cricket in order to bring Adam and Eve into focus that old story of a game against the devil is there still, despite the unusual approach. The devil is the bowler, he is the umpire, he is the wicket keeper, as you see there, and he's playing a game against Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve is batting a breadfruit. The breadfruit is the ball, and she's playing it very defensively, and the devil, as you see, is the serpent is very skillful in throwing the ball. You can see he's a left-handed spinner, and the ball spins and overhanging yorker. If she plays it, she might be caught behind the wicket. If she ignores it, she might be clean bowled. She's also batting outside of her crease, if you notice very carefully. Now, all the animals in Eden seem to realize something going on very, 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 very strange, or very significant, as I would say it again. And they keep very still. They really don't know what, but they sense something is very dramatic in the way. And you can see them, 2 parrots and 2 monkeys and 2 other animals in the background there. Adam is about to run but he doesn't know what to do, because he's hesitating if there would be a time to run, or he's confused there and wondering. So it's a very decisive moment there, you see. And as you see, I have put the serpent everywhere. It's just one serpent, but he is everywhere. He's ubiquitous. And that's what is all about, this thing. His ability to set up a strategy. And of course, you won't expect any fair judgment there, because you see, she has no chance against the umpire, neither the wicket keeper, neither the bowler. So they have very little chance, but she seems to be enjoying the game very much, and perhaps she might make some runs. Who knows? Perhaps she might make some runs. Who knows? Who knows? Here again, we have motion and movements. These are 2 statues on the rocks. On the rock, there are other rocks around, and all seem to be caught up in the and involved with the motion of the earth. Sorry. The statues are blowing musical instruments, and they are extremely, I should say, happy about what they are doing, and lost into the whole exercise. Meanwhile, you could see the circles all around them, on the land, on the sea, and in the air. And then the coconut tree to my left is also in motion. This is just a coconut tree. I may have been influenced by statues and rocks by the Grenadian islands, when I see such very captivating islands and rocks all along between Carriacou and Grenada, or between St. Vincent and Grenada. So I realized that maybe it might be a nice idea one day if we can attract tourists by putting statues and rocks in certain strategic spots, and having the tourists sail around and view them. It's a very captivating thing to see statues and monuments in any nation, and when they are out at sea or on promontories or rocks, it could be a most wonderful thing in civilization. It gives you a very elevated feeling. And so this picture of statues and rocks are my thoughts, which dominate me too, that it would be good to have such things in the nation, everywhere, in important spots. These colors are very much in harmony, and they are very radiant and beautiful, and the picture is not brilliant, but everything seems to be quite harmonizing, and I should say it's quite a happy scene. It's not one that can disturb you, but can delight you and make you feel very happy, and so on. It's one of my favorite pictures too. This kind of thing it's a creative kind of art. But what is scientifically correct? A landscape with the same circular involvement. It's a landscape that is including the sea, and you could see that the sea is bending in a sort of semicircular way, because everything there is rotating. On the top right hand corner you could see the flamboyant tree in bloom, but not in bloom as we see it, but as science will have it. they're moving like flying saucers. The blossoms are flying around in circles. And there is a coconut tree close to the flamboyant tree. And the branches are all disappeared as we can recognize them, but there is a circular thing moving there very swiftly at the top of the tree. And so we have everything in this motion. The islands out there, and the land and the sea and the houses and the boats out at sea and the people carrying things on their head. It's one grand dance of motion is involved in this landscape. So it is quite original and not a copy or imitation of anything seen, but something realized and expressed in art. And I say it's quite true of that motion. Nothing passes or nothing escapes that kind of movement. It's eternal. It goes on forever. Was from the beginning, and it will continue like that. So that's the idea of this picture. This painting is a very slightly different approach, but it was the same idea of circular behavior. This is a portrait on the profile, and the figure is leaning at 23.5 degrees in conformity with the Earth's slant. And while she leans, she's in motion. She moves, she leans from 90 degrees perpendicular. The G represents gravity. And gravity keeps her there in conformity with the Earth's angle. I use Roman numerals, 90 degrees, 23.5 degrees. And here we see the air, the sea, and the land. And all these circular activities, her afro hair, her face, and the lower part, the upper part of her body, neck, chest, are all affected by that movements. So the picture has made a different turn by leaning the figure to that in conformity with the Earth's angle, 23.5 degrees. Now I don't repeat myself in any of these circular exercises. I use, it's endless creativity. It's not, there's no repetition of the same thing. So there's so many variations. So this is just one of the variation. And I hope you will understand that it is not as the camera sees it, but as I know what is really happening in the universe. So it's not a realistic picture. It's keep it creative. It is creative and it is original, and it is an idea that is born from science and evolved into art. So I hope you will appreciate the new ideas. Some people don't like new ideas. They get mad. But if you understand that the new ideas alone help the world to take shape, you will be tolerant and not be too furious about any diversion or departure from normal things, procedure.